Hey guys, this is Dave Dunsire here in the studio with bass player of All That Remains, Matt Deis. Matt, welcome.
How you doing?
It's a pleasure.
Good to see you.
I'm super excited to hear about what you're using out on the road for this tour. You want to get into it with your bass?
Yeah, I'm using a Dingwall D-ROC Standard in the matte black finish here. 37-inch scale on the E, 34 on the G. These great ceramic pickups here. You can get a really good P bass tone out of them, which that's what I've been using for my main tone.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, as far as the rest of your rig, so you guys are all doing pretty direct in rigs so that you can have a really impressive light show.
Yeah.
What else do we have going on here?
So the main tone is a Fractal's version of a Mesa Boogie Bass 400 Plus with two powerhouse cabinets. So, you know, the 410s with the 15 in the middle, mic'd with a 421. Virtually, of course. In front of that, I'm running a Dark Glass B7K, the Sansamp YYZ for a little additional grit, and a Hyperluminal by Dark Glass if I need some added compression. As of right now, it's kind of bypassed because I think I have compression already on this patch.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, nice and simple.
Yeah. And you were the bass player on This Darkened Heart.
Yep.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about how your bass rig has evolved since then and what you were using back then.
I was a child back then, so I was just putting together piecemeal rigs from, you know, borrowing stuff from friends. Once I was able to save up enough money, I was buying Ibanez. I ended up getting an endorsement deal with Ibanez. Back then I was playing Sound Gear basses. But really, I was a broke kid. I didn't really know what I was doing. I know whenever we played with like Kill Switch, I saw Mike D playing Ibanez basses, so I was like, yeah, he sounds good. I'll do that. But as of now, yeah, I mean, what are we now? 17 years later, I've been playing in Nashville, doing session work. I've finally been able to like put a good gear collection together finally.
So doing this tour with All That Remains, you also do work in Nashville.
Yep.
You know, tell me a little bit about the studio stuff that you do and some of the other gigs that you've been playing.
Yeah, so I also play in a country group called Thompson Square. They were like ACMA award winners a couple of years back. They have a big single called "Are You Gonna Kiss Me or Not?" You know, like really good pop country stuff. But all of their bass was tracked by that guy Tully Kennedy, who is like the go-to Jason Aldean's bass player there. So I had worked with him directly to learn all those parts, you know, note for note. So I really got involved in the Nashville scene from there, just doing session work for other groups, playing with 641, Thompson Square, Tristan McIntosh. A lot of different genres that I wasn't used to, because prior to that it was just All That Remains and then CKY, which are a total opposite end of the spectrum. So just trying to be a more well-rounded musician, really.
What kind of gear do you end up using on a gig like Thompson?
I would use like a 5-string American Deluxe P bass, you know, one of the ones with the P and J setups on it. You know, just something simple like that.
Oh, fantastic. And do you have like a home studio where you're doing like a lot of tracking? Are you going out to different Nashville studios?
Yeah. So a lot of different spots on Music Row, like Jay's Place and all that. And I do have a studio at my place in Ashland City, Tennessee.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What kind of interface are you typically using? And
so I'm kind of dumb. I don't know. My fiance is an audio engineer and she set up the whole thing herself. So I think it's red and I plug into it.
fantastic.
Might be a Scarlet?
Perhaps.
I don't know.
What, with the All That Remains set, you guys are playing Fall of Ideals from front to back.
Yeah.
What is one of the trickiest songs to play live in the set?
They're all tricky. I mean, there's a lot of syncopated breakdowns and a lot of stuff where I'm doubling really intricate guitar parts. So I really don't get a break much. I mean, the occasional breakdown where I just, you know, I can put one hand up in the air and get the crowd going, but I'm working the whole time.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, back when you guys were doing This Darkened Heart, you know, what were things like back then? You know, obviously you were kind of young and just getting into it, but was that like your really first break into the touring scene? Like,
it was. I mean, I had played super regionally with just, you know, local high school friends and stuff like that, but yeah, when I joined All That Remains, that was the big break. And, you know, we were still a baby band at that point, but they had a record deal. You know, we had done some support slots with like Guar and Prong. We ended up getting a couple Slipknot opening slots on their, I think, Subliminal Verses tour. That was incredible. So, I was 19 years old playing at an amphitheater at that point. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your technique. So are you doing a lot of mostly picking, or are you switching back and forth between fingers and picking?
So my technique with All That Remains, prior to rejoining just now, when I was first in the band, I was playing everything with my fingers. I was young, I didn't really know any better, plus I didn't want to buy picks because I was broke. So now I'm playing 88s. There's a few little parts during the set where I'll switch over to fingers just for some more delicate stuff. But if, Jason Costa's playing those strong 30-second notes, I'm subdividing it and I'm trying to hammer out as much attack as I can.
Absolutely.
So,
tell me a little bit about some of your influences too growing up. Like, who are some of the bass players that you really take after stylistically?
So I know it's not very metal of me to say, but Paul McCartney absolutely is the GOAT of bass playing. So many people will, go to Flea or Billy Gould or so many, newer influences, not knowing that Paul McCartney already did it. The Beatles catalog is so dense, his solo catalog is so dense, there's nothing he hasn't done on bass. So you can learn a lot by going back and listening to pretty much anything Paul McCartney's ever done.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
You've also brought out a couple other basses on this tour. What was one? A few?
Yeah. I have a Gibson Les Paul bass and a Fender P bass, just kind of as backups. But the folks at Ballinger gave me a Goliath bass. They're making me a custom bass that's kind of based off a Thunderbird, but they gave me this to use in the meantime. It's called a Goliath. Music Man style pickups. Each one of these are coil tappable. So you can get a jazz bass sound, you can get a P bass sound, you got a high mass bridge. It's a nice passive setup as well. So really just a big fat sounding bass. I love this thing.
It's not too heavy either.
No, really light, which, as you get older, it's a good thing.
Yeah, no, on the shoulders.
Yeah.
Do you tend to kind of reach for like a roasted maple neck, or what kind of body woods do you tend to prefer?
In a perfect world, a mahogany body. I like a heavier bass usually. Maple fretboards in the studio always have a nice gank to them, a nice kind of drive. But with metal, it doesn't really matter. As long as your bass is loud.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really interesting with kind of like a take on a P bass, but
yeah.
The splits are very, very neat.
Kind of reminds me of the Blacktop series that Fender did a little while ago.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming out and visiting Sweetwater. It's been awesome to get to hear what you're using in the studio and on tour. Thanks for checking out this rig tour. This is Dave Dunsire at Sweetwater, signing off.